Stop that right now!
Bruce is by far the most interesting character to talk about. No matter how many times the devs try to kill him, either in game or by replacing him, he just doesn't die. Bruce lost his entire family very early on and grew up with nothing, but he still defeated all odds and became a feared warrior. His power eventually drew envy and hate, from which led to the first assassination attempt on his life. Targeted by an assassin, his plane was downed and he was badly injured in a crash. He had amnesia. He forgot who he was. Kazuya Mishima personally traveled to the plane crash. He recovered Bruce's body in the wreckage, and taking advantage of the situation, realizing that he had amnesia, Kazuya took Bruce in as a bodyguard and eventually promoted him to head of security. From ever since then, they were unstoppable. However, Bruce's last appearance is a controversial one. Bruce disappeared in the midst of the war in Tekken 6. His death was never confirmed, but always assumed by the players, or should I say, feared. Bruce's sudden disappearance in Tekken 6 is never explained. The biggest theory on what happened is basically that he died, but that is never confirmed. That is only speculation. However, the in-game death isn't the only thing he must overcome. Like I said at the start, Bruce has many quote-unquote replacements: Brian Fury, Josie, and Fakaram, all of which are rejected by the community. You could argue that Brian Fury is a successful replacement, seeing as how he became the top 5 most popular character in the game when Bruce couldn't. But once again, the community doesn't see Brian Fury that way. When Brian Fury was introduced, he really took on a personality or an identity of his own, which is why the Bruce request continued. Now, Josie and Fakaram are direct replacements, and what's interesting about Fakaram in particular is when the character was being developed, Michael Murray said they were working on a character, but they ended up deciding on making a brand new character altogether. That doesn't sound crazy, but when you really think about what he said, you realize that they were in fact working on Bruce. But they were changing so much about Bruce in the design process for Season 3, you can call it revamping Bruce. Along the ways of developing the character, it no longer felt like Bruce, which is why Michael Murray, you go back to the quote, he said, "We were working on a character, we made so many changes, we ended up deciding to make it a new one altogether." Fakaram being the third replacement of Bruce, you would expect this one to stick. Third time the charm, but for a combination of reasons, Fakaram was extremely hated and only increased the amount of Bruce requests, which led to him being the second most requested character behind Jun Kazama, who is now in Tekken 8, which makes Bruce the new number 1. And another thing that's very interesting about Bruce too is we have many interviews where Michael Murray is talking about what characters he wants in Tekken 8. And he always says Bruce.
But I'm torn because Bruce, a proper kickboxer, I mean, I know people are going to give me crap on Twitter for this. Believe me, preaching the choir, So I would love to see him back.
Even when Josie is presented, he say Bruce. Even when Fakaram is presented, he say Bruce. That's his go-to character always. And he kind of embodies what the community feels. None of these characters are replacements. All of this hype, all of this talk, you start to hear a pushback against Bruce. Players say things like everyone who's requesting Bruce isn't even going to play him, or why bring back Bruce just for him to be unpopular again? And there is some weight to that. Bruce is sort of a meme in the community. Put Bruce in Tekken 8, so on and so forth. It's very similar to the whole buff Lars meme. Everyone requested Lars to be buffed, but once he actually was buffed, that didn't do really anything for his player usage. So when people say buff Lars, buff Gigas, Jun Kazama for Tekken 8, Christine for Tekken 8, Bruce for Tekken 8, when it happens, what does the player do next? But also, the longevity of Bruce doesn't really matter. Bruce players are right in questioning why being the most popular character is necessary for Bruce and not others. Many other characters are requested to return without the expectation that they must be top 5 in Tekken 8. But for Bruce, it's always mentioned as if it's a condition. For example, people say, why would you put Bruce in a game if he's going to be unpopular once again? My question is, and Bruce players' question is, even if Bruce is unpopular, why can't he be the character who's unpopular, but he's put there for the the hardcore players. If Kuma's for the casuals, Bruce for the hardcore. If Elias is for the females, Bruce is for the hardcore. That's the argument that is being made, and I do think it's true. It's true. You can't just have a bunch of characters who are for casuals and then ignore the hardcore player base. I'm not gonna play Bruce, but if that's what the hardcore players want, then it makes sense. But regardless of the situation, Bruce will return to Tekken 8. I'm certain of it. I just hope his story is developed in a meaningful way. With Kazuya being the focal point of the story in Tekken 8, he is going to need characters close to him to bounce off of so he can grow as a character. We never really got a deep look at Kazuya's, like, personally. We only see him in combat or rotating around Heihachi or Jin. But I want to see this character stand on his own, see this character working in the shadows, and see what this character can truly do. And I think having a character there like Bruce can aid in that, because so far Kazuya only has Nina at his side, whereas Jin Kazama has so many characters at his side. Too many characters, one could argue. Bruce has more than one role to play in Tekken 8, being a true representation of the Muay Thai style that players will appreciate, completing the story arc that was started when Kazuya pulled him out of the wreckage, and finally satisfying that nostalgia hit that everyone is yearning for. Even though I won't play Bruce, I'm looking forward to what he can do in the story, and I'm looking forward to facing him one more time. My experience with him in Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was a brutal one. I couldn't stop the matchup, the players were too talented. But this time around, my Yoshimitsu's more deadly, more prepared, and I'm ready to face the nightmare.
Sorry, your little girl has to see this. Come on!